Given the following equation, identify the information and graph the function. Couple things to keep in mind. Please put a little 1 as an exponent on the x below. Notice that the degree on top is not the same as the degree on the bottom. When that happens, there's no horizontal asymptote, but there is a slant asymptote. There's no horizontal, but there is a slant. So let's figure out what the slant asymptote is. Off the side, I'm writing x minus 3. Inside, I have negative 1x squared. Since there's no x's, I have to write 0x as a place filler, and there's no constants plus 0. And I prefer to use these little dotted lines that keep everything in the right column. X times what value equals negative 1x squared? So not only is it going to be an x that we need to multiply, it is a negative x. So negative x times x is negative 1x squared. Now the negative x, I need to write it into the column that only has x's. That would be this column. Now multiply to the first, we say distribute, and distribute to the second. Remember, there's a 4-step process here. So it's determine the number on top, distribute is step 2. Step 3 is go to that second line and change the signs. So if it was negative, make it positive, and if it was positive, make it negative. Step 4 is combine. The x squared is canceled, I'm doing it right, and 0 and negative 3 is negative 3x. Bring down the last number. Okay, underline the negative 3. X times what equals negative 3x? Negative 3, so put it into the last column that only has the constants. And now I'm going to distribute for step 2. Multiply negative 3x, multiply positive 9. Step 1 and step 2 are done. Step 3, change everything on the second line, change the sign. So if it was negative, make it positive, and vice versa. Now combine your x's and combine your numerical values. So there is a remainder, but remember at this level, this is all I need to see is what's on top. So y equals, it's an equation. You can't just write negative x minus 3. Y equals negative x minus 3. Your vertical asymptote will come from the bottom. Take the bottom, set it equal to 0, and solve. Remember, for vertical asymptotes, you can't just write 3. It's x equals 3. Your 0 will come from taking the numerator and setting the numerator equal to 0 and solving. So I'm going to divide by negative 1. 0 divided by any number is 0. When I square root a 0, I don't get plus or minus 0. It's just 0. Okay, I'm going to graph this with you. It's often easier to have a highlighter. So I'm going to go to x equals 3, and I'm going to graph the vertical asymptote. Then I'm going to graph the slant asymptote, also known as the diagonal asymptote or the oblique asymptote. And that is y equals negative x minus 3. So start at negative 3, and it has a slope of negative 1 over 1, over 1, down 1, or down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. Bless you. So this is difficult to see. It'd be nice if I could extend this down, or if the graph was just a little bit longer. But there are 4 sections, not equal sections, but there are 4 sections here. We're going to use the graph to tell us which sections we need to graph in. Remember that, this already tells us, x equals 0. X equals 0 is the x-intercept. So go to 0. That means it's going to be in here and also down here in the kitty corner position. For the domain, there is no restriction. This is diagonal. So As this is being pulled to the left, it's also being pulled up. That's why it goes diagonal. There is no restriction how far this continues to move to the left, because as this moves to the left, so does your slant asymptote. So there's no restrictions how far this goes to the left, and then it keeps going to the right until it hits this vertical asymptote. So the domain is negative infinity to 2. It jumps over the vertical asymptote and it starts again. And it goes from 2 and it continues to go to the right with no restrictions. When you're done with that, to do the range, you will have a multiple choice option also on your test. We're going to plug this actual fraction into your calculator, so please do second plus 712. Go to y equals negative x squared. I'm going to put the negative actually outside, see if that makes any difference. Here, negative x squared. And we're going to divide that by x minus 3. So notice how I have it. Please type it in the same. Oh, 3. I looked down quick and saw a 2 there. I read, thank you, Francisco. I simply read the line wrong. Thank you, Francisco. So here's what I have. Oh, let's make sure you can see it. Once you have this, please hit graph. Okay, we're going to extend this window. So let's go to window. We need to go down a little further. So let's go to y minimum, and let's go down to negative 25. Y minimum, let's see if we can see it now. Okay, so in this position, it's a low part of this part of the graph. You're going to find the minimum, and here you're going to find the maximum. So it's going to go second, trace, and I'm going to do the maximum first. So I want to find the maximum here. I'm going to have my arrow go off to the right until I see it. There it is. Okay. So I go left to the highest point, somewhere to the right, and where I believe the highest point is. Okay, so 6, negative 12 is the highest point of this portion. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm just going to draw a little dot and write 6, negative 12. I'm going to do the same thing for the minimum. I want to know what is this value. So second, trace, minimum. Use the arrows going to the left until you see it jump up. There it is. So we're going to go left of the lowest point, press enter, go somewhere to the right of the lowest point, press enter, and back to where you believe the lowest point occurs. So the lowest point on that portion of the graph, and by the way, this is in scientific notation, so this is the same as 0 and 0. Again, this is the same as 0, 0. How many of you have 0, 0? Hands up high. Okay? So let's write 0, 0. So how do we do the range? Well, there's no limit how low it goes, but it goes up as far as what y value? The key is y value. Range is y's. It goes from negative infinity all the way up to, okay, I'm going to write that down. Negative infinity all the way up to negative 12. Then there's all this dead area. Nothing's happening. And then it starts again at what y value? But here's the key, and I think I need to change my answer key. Do you see at 0, not only is it starting there, but do you see how it touches these points? So I need to change that point. We're going to go like this. And it goes from 0, and there's no limitation how high it goes. So I'm going to go and find which option does this look like. It looks like option D. Will you do me a favor and change this? So the correct answer, if you put D, that's totally fine. Or if you wanted to write this down, that's okay too. So as you go off to the far left for end behavior, as the far left continues to go up with no restriction. And if you go off to the far right, it continues to go down with no restriction.